Salam guys, so you've heard me talk on this channel about halal investing and ways to build wealth that are in line with Islamic principles, and how if you live in the United States and you need halal funding, you should go to fundmebff.com and apply for funding. Applying is free and it doesn't affect your credit score. Seamless transition. But what you haven't heard me talk about on this channel yet is what I'm going to talk about in this video, which is the decision that will likely have the most impact on your financial well-being during your lifetime, and that decision is who you decide to get married to. Now, obviously, this decision won't only affect your financial well-being, but your overall well-being, so it's extremely important. So what I want to cover in this video are a few tips that inshallah you'll find useful regardless of whether you are looking to get married or you're already married or you are going through a divorce. So let's get started. Before you get married, when you're in the engagement period, typically you're head over heels about your partner, you're a couple of lovebirds, and in your eyes, your partner can do no wrong. Now, during this period, my advice would be to absolutely have fun, but also try to have some of the more serious conversations that are going to give you insights into what type of person the person you're considering for marriage actually is. Now, as it relates to money, one of the things that you want to figure out is what is the general philosophy of this person regarding money. So questions that you probably want to figure out the answers to are: do they check on prices before they make a purchase? Are their feelings towards you proportional to how much you spend on them? Are they putting pressure on you to spend more than what you can afford? Do they have some expensive habits? Can you afford those habits? Are they only happy when they're spending money? Or do they have a great attitude and they can make the best out of any situation? Now, obviously, you want to be tactful about finding out the answers to these questions. You don't want to directly ask someone, hey, are your feelings towards me proportional to how much I spend on you? You're likely going to offend them, and you're probably not going to get any information out of their answer anyway, because they're probably going to say what sounds right. No one says, yeah, my feelings towards you are proportional to how much you spend on me. And if they do, then that's a red flag if I've ever seen one. Additionally, don't go into a marriage thinking that you're going to change the person after you get married. It's hard enough to change yourself, let alone anyone else. When you get into a marriage, you should have the mentality of, I think I can be happy with this person as they are, even if they don't change after marriage. Now, in addition to their general philosophy on money, you want to figure out what their balance sheet looks like. I'm not talking about the details, I'm talking about the big ticket items. So if the person has tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt, that's something that you need to take into consideration. Now, I'm not saying that this should cause you not to marry the person, but understand that when you do marry that person, you are married to that debt, and therefore you should have a plan on how you're going to deal with that debt after you get married. On the other hand, if you are the person that has the debt in your name, then I think it is in line with Islamic principles and just general morality that you tell the other person about your debt, because I think they have a right to know this information. Again, try to be tactful about the ways you both acquire and disclose this type of information. Finally, especially for guys, make sure that you're honest about your level of wealth. Don't give off the impression that you're richer than you actually are. Be honest about your lifestyle and what you are and aren't able to afford. If she's okay with that, then great. If she's not, then it's better for her to know prior to marriage than after marriage, wherein she has legitimate reason to feel like she was lied to and she was deceived, and that's not any way you want to start off a marriage. Now, moving on to after you find the lucky person and you get married, my advice is to make sure you keep a budget. This basically means that every dollar that comes into the household needs to have a clear assignment, whether it's for savings or for investment or for consumption. And then the second thing I would advise is to make sure you have clear financial goals, and make sure you write these goals down along with your plan on how to achieve them. And these financial goals should answer questions such as, by what age do you want to be debt-free? At every age, how much savings and investments do you want to have? When do you want to buy a house? And when do you want to retire? And these goals should be written together and they should be revisited and updated together with your spouse. And then my third piece of financial advice is to make sure that you're not keeping your spouse in the dark regarding the family's finances. In Islam, it is the duty of the husband to provide financially for the family. But this doesn't mean that the wife should be kept in the dark regarding the family's finances. I think it is imperative for each spouse to know where the family stands financially. This can help keep both partners on the same page in terms of what they can and can't afford. And in case something happens to the husband, the wife has the knowledge and experience to manage the finances of the family. It can also be less stressful for the husband if they are not alone in their knowledge of the family's finances. And by the way, while we're on this topic, some people think that the husband should have his own separate finances and the wife should have her own separate finances, so each partner takes care of their own selves, so there's no dependencies between the two. And I wholeheartedly disagree with this line of thinking. If each spouse is entirely independent from the other and there are no dependencies between the two, then you don't really have a husband and wife relationship. What you have here is two roommates. Marriages naturally go through ups and downs, and if there are no dependencies in the relationship, then it makes it quite easy for either side to say to themselves, well, I don't need this other person, and just walk away whenever the going gets tough. So I actually think having dependencies between the husband and the wife, wherein the husband depends on the wife for some matters and the wife depends on the husband for other matters, that these dependencies actually increase the resiliency of the relationship. Now, this brings me to the topic of divorce and my advice for spouses in case they're going through a divorce. Now, I hope, inshallah, none of you have to go through a divorce, and if you have gone through a divorce, I hope you're in a better position today. Now, if you are going through a divorce, there is one point that I would like to stress here, and that is make sure you are fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're dealing with your partner or your ex-partner. Don't treat the other side based on your feelings towards the other side. Rather, treat them how you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to treat them. You'll always end up as a winner if you do things this way, in this life and the next. Specifically, what I want to emphasize here is that if you have an agreement with your spouse that your marriage is an Islamic marriage, and you all should have this agreement if you are Muslims and you're getting married, that you're married according to Islamic law, and divorce happens and you see that according to the law of the country in which you live, you'll get more money if you follow that law versus Islamic law. And the country that you live in, the courts don't recognize the Islamic marriage contract that you have with your spouse. So you decide that you're going to follow the laws of the country that you live in and completely ignore the Islamic marriage contract that you have with your spouse. Then whatever money that you get that is above what you were entitled to according to the Islamic marriage contract, in the eyes of Islam, you have stolen from your ex. To be even more blunt, you are a thief for taking that money. Even if the court gave you that money, because you had an agreement, you had an Islamic marriage contract with your spouse, and you chose not to honor it, taking advantage of the fact that the courts in your country don't recognize that contract. And keep in mind here, whether or not your spouse was good to you is completely irrelevant to your obligations to honor your word and to honor the Islamic marriage contract that you had with your spouse. And I got news for you. Typically, when people get divorced, they don't think highly of the person they're divorcing. Typically, they think that the other side was a jerk to them and that they are the victims. Very rarely does anyone say, oh yeah, that was completely on me. I was the real jerk in this relationship. No, it's always the other side. So typically when people get divorced, they think the other side treated them badly. So just because you think the other side treated you badly, that is no excuse for you not to honor a contract that you have with them. If the laws of divorce in Islam only applied when the two people getting a divorce thought highly of one another, then they would almost never be applied. Remember, 50 years from now, we're all going to be dead or we're going to be close to checking out of this world. So you want to make sure that when you check out, you don't have a bunch of luggage that you have to carry with you that you don't want to carry. And there is no worse luggage to take with you to the afterlife than money that you took that you were not entitled to. And on this topic, and I know what I'm about to say will be unacceptable for a lot of different people, especially depending on their culture. So you want to tread very carefully here. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to get a prenup, especially if you have significant assets going into a marriage. And basically what I mean by a prenup is a contract that the country that you live in will recognize that basically splits the assets between you and your spouse in case of divorce according to Islamic law. So you wouldn't put on the contract that it's according to Islamic law, but you would divvy it up according to Islamic law and you would put it in a contract and you would make sure that this contract that you put this in is recognized by the laws of the country that you live in. Now, hopefully you never need it. Obviously, you approach the matter like you approach insurance. You hope you never need it, but if you do need it, it's rather useful. I know this is not an easy conversation to have, but it's one that can potentially save you a lot of headache in the future. I hope none of you have to go through divorce. If you are going through a divorce, make sure you are fearing Allah in the way you treat the other person. And if you have already gone through a divorce, I hope you're in a better spot right now. I hope you find the person that completes you if you haven't already. And if you are married, I hope that you live a long and healthy, happy life together. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you left a like and you subscribed for more content. Again, if you need halal funding and you live in the United States, make sure to go to fundmebff.com. Applying is free and it doesn't affect your credit score. Until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.